Namaskar friends. I welcome you all to the Hindu editorial analysis on 25th September 2023. Now, an editorial article which points to the lacunas in the present 128th Constitution Amendment Act is titled Taking India to the Drawing Board. In 1976, when the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution was brought about, the 42nd Amendment to the Constitution fixed the census of 1971 as the population figure, that is the census of 1971 as the population figure, which would be the reference point for fixing the limitations of constituencies, that is the limits of the constituencies and the number of MPs to the parliament. Since then, it is almost going to be 50 years when the next census is due on this aspect. For the delimitation aspect, it is going to be 2031. Almost 50 years since the first delimitation was frozen. In fact, it was frozen because the 1971 census was the base figure on which the number of members to be elected from each state to the parliament is still running. In 2001, when the 84th Amendment to the Constitution was brought about, it again fixed 1971 census as the final figure on which the number of members to the parliament would be elected. Why this was fixed and frozen is that because the states feared that the population would decrease in their states, and if another census was taken, the north would get more MPs and South India would get lesser number of MPs, because one MP in North India is representing more number of people than one MP who represents a person from South India. The number of persons represented by MPs from South India are lesser than the number of persons represented by an MP from North India. That is the reason why this frozen exercise is just postponed and postponed and postponed, and now 2031 would be the next delimitation exercise which would be conducted. That means this has got implication for the Women's Reservation Bill. The Women's Reservation Bill is here to stay, and it will not happen even before 2031. Technically, it is not possible because 2024 elections, for the census to be taken and the delimitation exercise conducted, this is not seemingly possible. Therefore, the next delimitation exercise and therefore the women's reservation of 33% is here to wait till 2031 is what this article titled Taking India Back to the Drawing Board is talking about. This is by Ritvika Sharma, and this is a very good read. Now, the Middle East, India, Middle East, Europe economic corridor has been discussed in G20, and the leaders are charting out, just looking for the options to make it possible and make it happen. Based on this idea, the Israel is not involved in the G20 meet. It was not invited in the G20 meet. Why so? Because in the India Middle East Europe corridor, Israel is the main functionary, and if it is omitted, this would not serve any purpose at all. Therefore, the article titled An Economic Corridor, the Israel Link and the Geopolitics has to be taken seriously. Saudi Arabia is trying to mingle with Israel, so with the Gulf countries. And the condition being considered for mingling with Israel by the Saudi Arabia and the other Gulf countries is that there must be a two-state policy, Israel and Palestine. Was this the reason why, while Saudi Arabia and some Middle East countries were considered for the G20 summit, was Israel intentionally omitted out has to be seen. However, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, has expressed his interest to America that this India Middle East Europe corridor, economic corridor, is in the favor of Israel's interest. And Israel has been very much positive to express this to America, but not to India. Because first you have to forge friendship. Consider the places through which this is passing through. Israel has to be taken into friendship for this to happen. And countering the China's Belt and Road Initiative, which is a debt trap on which Sri Lanka has fallen and many other countries are yet to fall. Even Bangladesh is involved. So, if it has to counter the Belt and Road Initiative of China, this has to see the light of the day. Therefore, the article is aptly calling for Israel to be taken into account before this India Middle East Europe corridor becomes a reality. The editorial article by Prashant Bhushan is a very interesting read for the reason which it contains. It is analyzing the basic structure of the Constitution with regard to the parliamentary system of government or the presidential system of government. Prashant Bhushan is of the opinion that, well, the article is titled Simultaneous Polls but only in a presidential system. Prashant Bhushan is of the opinion that this simultaneous polls would disrupt the basic structure of the Constitution. While the Constitution was made, there was the consideration of the parliamentary system of government because the framers of the Constitution thought that for the diverse country like India, this would only fit. And if this is disrupted, for example, if an assembly election is held and the government comes into picture, and in the mid of the rule, the state government rule, the government loses the confidence, then a no confidence motion is moved, and for the next half term the government although runs with the confidence motion, however it has not the majority of the members, the assembly members confidence. That is the main point. then it requires certain articles of the constitution to be changed. The articles have to be changed, like Article 54 of the constitution, the part 4 and part 5 of the constitution has to be changed, and only the presidential system of government is just like in America. In the United States, there is a proper system. When the president is being elected directly by the people, there is a direct election there. When the president resigns from the post, the vice president takes over. And when the vice president resigns, the speaker takes over. So, presidential system of government is the highlight which Prashant Bhushan makes with this article. He is saying that if simultaneous elections are to be held, if at all held, it has to be in a presidential system of government rather than in a parliamentary system of government. However, it is not possible because this diverse country like India, it is not feasible to run a single executive power in the hands of the president. This has been several times debated and considered and vetted. The opposition India bloc would not allow it. Therefore, the coming elections to the state assemblies would delay. That is the intention with which this new idea is being brought about, is what Prashant Bhushan is saying with this article: simultaneous polls but only in a presidential system. The editorial article points out, which is titled Playing to the Gallery, points out the cacophony which the new parliament building is witnessing. One side, one MP is abusing another. Another side, in the Rajya Sabha, some members in the gallery are shouting. Another side, some opposition members are going against the spirit of the parliament and joining hands to disrupt the parliament. All these things are not in keeping with the new temple of democracy, which is the new parliament building. The editorial article is advising that the new parliament building should form the confidence of the people rather than it being turned into a venue for cacophony. It should be showcased as an exemplary example to show the people that some serious business is being run, whether it be the India bloc or the ruling party. None enjoys majority in the Rajya Sabha. What happens is that some kind of cacophony is always happening, and this is disrupting. It was well with the old parliament building and has changed into the new parliament building, is what the sad story. It has to stop. It has to put an end, is what this editorial article is talking about. The editorial, which is pointing fingers at China's denial of visa to the wushu players from Arunachal Pradesh, is a very sad one. The editorial is titled Politicizing Exchanges. This Asian Games, which is happening in Hangzhou, must be setting an example for the display of sportsmanship. The Chinese denial of visas to the players from Arunachal Pradesh, the three players from Arunachal Pradesh is a mockery of the sportsman spirit which the Asian Games is trying to portray. China being the past champion and the most number of medals winner has to lead by example. Our sports minister and information broadcasting minister Anurag Thakur has declined Chinese invitation to visit the Asia. The matters regarding visas have not been clearly discussed and spelled out by China. India's demands of disengagement with the border's line of actual control has not been obeyed by China. What does China try to portray? In New York Times, the New York Times has reported that their news reporters have visited the South China Sea and has witnessed that Chinese aggression is crossing all limits in South China Sea. What is China up to? It will not leave the Asian Games also. It will not let the sportsman spirit to prevail over the geopolitics in Asian Games. Going further, hope that China would understand its mistake and make a great show of the Asian Games and show of sportsman spirit. With these words, let me conclude to say that last but not the least data point is showing that the diaspora, that Indian diaspora in Canada is suffering a lot because of the heated exchanges between India and Canada now. The turmoil has resulted in worsening of the relations between India and Canada. This has been a very bad example. Why Canada is fostering the terrorist leaders from India is not known. The Palestinian terrorists have to be banned by Canada. It has to take an equal share of involvement with India if it is serious on its fight against terrorism. Therefore, we look up to Canada for a very prudent approach and commonsensical approach on this sphere, because if you entertain the Palestinian terrorists, this would also be endangering and threatening the Canada's security. So Data Point article is a very good reminder to Canada, and the Indian diaspora in Canada has to be protected. Diaspora means the team of or the collection of Indians who are already the permanent citizens of Canada and staying there. That is the diaspora. We have to protect them. With these words, my dear friends, let me conclude my editorial analysis today. Hope you enjoyed the analysis, and you have to carry it within your head and think about it and be a good human being. What all this, the actions from Canada, actions from China, actions from the ruling members of the country, all these actions teach us a lesson, that a moral lesson, that we have to act judiciously considering the diverse and the unified nature of our fellow beings. Loving the fellow beings is the only thing which we can do from our side, my dear friends. With these words, let me conclude. Thank you. Thank you for being a patient listener. Thank you.